Good afternoon. Welcome to Book Naples. I'm so happy that you're all here with me today. We have a great afternoon planned. We've got amazing authors speaking today. We've got recording artist Paige in the house who's going to be delivering some original songs. And we have a bookstore full of original books and other authors that are sitting here in the front row. And I just want to say thank you for coming here and spending the afternoon. I hope you'll be inspired. I hope you'll find something that educates you. And I hope you go away with your heart feeling full. Because that's what we're about here. Our mission at O'Leary Publishing is to publish books that raise the global consciousness. So our mission is really to help you have a better life. And if you feel that way today when you leave, then we've accomplished our mission. So 10 years ago this month, I published my first book. It was called Ride the Wave, Journey to Peaceful Living. And I had no idea at that time that that would lead me down a path to publishing books for others. In November of 2018, I had a friend up in the state of Washington who had a viral Facebook post. And he was getting some national media hits, and he felt like he didn't have the chance to really share the full story of what he was so passionate about. So he reached out to me and he said, "Could you help me publish a book?" And I was like, "Could I?" And so I did. And we put together an online Facebook launch. His book launched to #1 on Amazon in his category. It led him to a full-scale. I was surprised too. I was excited. And it led him to a full-scale political campaign for the governorship of the state of Washington. He lost to the incumbent Jay Inslee, but for a small-town police chief from northeast Washington state, in a city with a population of 1,000, what are the chances he would run second in his whole state in a year? And that's all because he put it together in a book. And that's what I believe the power of books is. Books give you the opportunity to share what's in your heart with the world. And that's what our authors are here to do with you today. I give them so much gracious gratitude for trusting me to put their words into a book. And for practicing, we've been rehearsing since October. So I'm sure they're ready for this event to be over. But this morning, we actually met at 9 o'clock and did one last run-through, and they're still smiling. Nobody's run away yet. And I just want to thank them. I want to thank our other authors that are here, our O'Leary Publishing team that's here. We have people that have flown in from Illinois and Michigan and Indiana. And we have so much love to share. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Kristina Jay, the author of The Conscious Divorce, 30 Principles to Help You Choose Yourself. She's got some exciting things to share with us today, and I know you're going to really enjoy her. Welcome, Kristina.
Hello. All right. So 5 years ago, I was a miserable woman. I really was. I was in a broken marriage, and I knew I needed to get a divorce. However, I was petrified. I was with this man for 20-something years, and I kept thinking, who would I be in the middle of my life with a divorce afterwards? I built my whole life around this relationship, around my family. So instead of taking care of my situation and dealing with it, I did everything possible to stay busy. I was exhausted. I was so busy. And at night, I would sit on my sofa, and I would think and drink some more and think. I don't know how good the thinking was with all that drinking, but I was thinking. And I kept thinking about everything I would lose if I got divorced. You know, it was supposed to be my happily ever after. But when the castle comes crumbling down all around you, you know that it's not your happily ever after. But I continued this for over a year. I mean, I literally did not take responsibility. I was waiting for something outside of myself to swoop in and save me, but no one was going to come save me. I need to do this for myself. And I sat around feeling bad for myself. It was a never-ending cycle of victimhood. It really was. I was mad, I was blaming, I was resentful, and I just started to despise myself. I really did. I was suffering inside because I knew what I needed to do, and I didn't do it. But my higher self had my back. So little by little, I started to have these aha moments, and I'm going to share 3 major ones with you, but I had a lot of them. And the first aha moment I had, I'll start over here. So the whole spectrum of thoughts that I had, this end of the spectrum was, I cannot get divorced, I'm petrified, and I'm not even capable. The opposing end of the spectrum was, I'm getting divorced, and I'm doing it successfully, and I'm going to be happy afterwards. So I started down here. My first aha moment was about my daughter. You know, as a mother, you're always worried about what divorce will mean for your children. And I said to myself, a brilliant question, I said, well, what would you tell your daughter to do? And the first thing I thought was, well, I would tell her to get her stuff and I'll help her. And I would tell my daughter, choose yourself first. Your happiness and your well-being and your life is what counts. And that's your responsibility. So it was so easy for me in this hypothetical scenario to give her permission. But for some reason, I could not give myself permission to do the same thing. You know, as a parent, as a mother, we often forget the importance of our own journey, that it's our responsibility. So I said to myself, all right, well, what if I did choose my well-being first? What would that mean for her? And then I said, well, it would mean I'd put my own oxygen mask on first so I could take care of her. I would be a better mother because I was not the mother I was supposed to be in this situation. In the middle of this broken relationship, my emotions were all over the place. In addition, I would be giving my daughter permission by example to choose herself first, to choose her own happiness first in her own life. And I was okay with that. So my second aha moment, I was in a parking lot looking at the sign that said, Imagine on it. And I had seen this sign a lot, but for some reason it hit me differently this time. And what I thought was, you know what? Imagine if I could get a divorce. Imagine if it was successful, and imagine if I was happy afterwards. So we know everything starts with imagination, so that was a good sign. Everything seemed to be the glass half full now instead of empty. So I was headed this way. My last aha moment, we'll call it an evening of surrender. And by surrender, I mean I stopped thinking because I'm a thinker. So when I stopped thinking, I allowed myself to have a new awareness. It was this opening inside of me. It was this sense of grounding and peace and strength. It was love. It was this feeling of consciousness. It was the authentic me. I felt it. I knew it. And in that moment, I also realized, you know what? I'm not my stuff. All this time I had been contemplating everything I would lose in marriage, but I'm not the new house or the car. I am not my identity or the roles I've been playing. I'm not these circumstances. I'm so much more than all of that. I realized my true identity, my authentic self, that I was energy, that I was love, and I was full of potential, and I could take all of that with me and move on. I knew that I had all of my wisdom to bring with me, my experiences, therefore everything that I had learned from those experiences. My own gifts and talents were still mine, my own self-love. I kept thinking about things I would lose, but what about what I might gain? I might gain more self-worth, more self-love. I might gain more integrity. You know, there's a saying that you're always one decision away from a totally different life, and I was at that point. This was that one decision. So, what if in the unknown that I've been fearing so much was actually my best life ever? You know, you never know. So at this point, I knew I needed to choose myself. I really did. And to top it off, my husband brought home a gift for me. And this just validated the whole thing. So he brought a gift, and it was at the very peak of our unhappiness. And the gift was a plaque. And the plaque said, happiness is an inside job. Okay, so imagine, you're miserable in your marriage and your husband brings this home to you. You know I want to hit him over the head with it, right? But instead, I smiled, and I said, I guess you better get to work. Sarcasm is so much better. It's so sweet. But that was just a sign. I knew, I was like, it's time to go. So I did. I chose myself first. I chose my own self-worth and my own love, and I executed a conscious divorce. So what's a conscious divorce? Well, a conscious divorce is a divorce executed with mindfulness, with awareness. It's a divorce where you have a strategy, a plan, you're thinking. And you're also having compassion and kindness for everyone, the whole entire family, because divorce is not just about you, it affects the whole family. So even though I did execute a conscious divorce successfully, it hurt. I mean, I was heartbroken. With someone for 20 years and your heart does not break. My heart was broken. And in addition, my mind was so confused to have the one person I always went to be the one person I can't now. That will really mess you up. So, and I'm still healing. 5 years later, I'm still healing. But I learned that you heal in layers. That's what I learned. And I learned that I'm not just healing from the divorce. I mean, I'm healing from way back. Because once you go in to heal, you go in deep. So you're saying, thanks, Mom and Dad. Thanks to all your ancestors, but you know what? I'm healing myself. It's stopping here. So 5 years, and I'm healing my mental, my physical, my emotional body, my self-esteem. I've learned a lot. Oh, and plus I had to forgive. But you know what? I did not have to forgive my ex-husband. I needed to forgive myself. I need to forgive myself for giving away my own power in my life. I need to forgive myself for actually getting to the point where I believed my own worth was attached to my stuff, to my identity. So I did. I need to forgive myself for all of that. But I learned a lot of tools as well. I used affirmations throughout my entire divorce. They were key. They were a focal point where I could stay positive, and I would switch them out and use different ones for different phases of the divorce. In addition, I listened to so many podcasts and read so many books about healing and spirituality. I journaled like crazy. I wrote about so many things that it ended up becoming the principles in the Conscious Divorce book that I wrote. And then lastly, you cannot underestimate just releasing some energy. So a good cry, a cry of tears, but also a cry of rage, because I was mad, but you don't want to do this. You don't want to be in Target and decide that's when you're going to get triggered and have a cry of rage, which I did, because when you're like, and everyone scatters, I got to the front of the line, but it was embarrassing. I'll do it in private next time, but you can't help it sometimes. So all of this I'm going through, and I realized, you know what? This is the university of adversity. Like, holy cow, I'm learning so much about myself, about life. I listened, because life is always trying to teach you something, but you do just have to listen. So when you go through something, if you do it with consciousness, with awareness, you can learn from your mistakes, you can learn from your troubles. And they say that there's 10% of your life, 10% of an adversity is what you have to work with. Really, 90% of the whole ordeal is how you deal with it. So how I responded to my adversity was more important than the adversity itself, actually, because that dictated how the rest of my story would go. So, even though I consciously chose to end that version of my happily ever after, I did. For every ending of a story, there's always a new beginning. And I was starting my new story. And I actually came up with a new happily ever after, a true happily ever after that I realized. And I have a formula for it, which I'm going to share with you. It's called CPR. So it stands for Choose Yourself First, Pass by Fear, and Reveal True Happiness. Now, literally, I did need to use CPR after the divorce. I mean, you need to use that to restart your heart and restart love for yourself and for life again. But let's look at Choose Yourself First. I spoke about that a little bit already, about putting your own oxygen mask on first so that you can help others. Love yourself first so you can love others. And of course, people are going to say, that sounds a little selfish, doesn't it? Well, I challenge you and I say, well, who else is responsible for your life? If you're not going to love yourself and take care of yourself first, who else is going to? And plus, my definition of it is that I love and choose myself first so I can give, so I can serve. Because you can't give what you don't have. So that's my version of Choose Yourself First. Choose Yourself First also means, surprise, it's not just I'm first for the manicure or I'm first for the vacation. Choose Yourself First means you're responsible for everything that has to do with yourself. It's responsibility, that's what it is. So you're taking responsibility for your own thoughts, your beliefs, your own emotions, your attitude, how you show up in life. You're responsible. You're responsible for your own actions. You are responsible for your own happiness, if we only knew that. In addition, you're blaming no one for anything. No more blaming. You're taking responsibility for everything in your life, because what I learned was that blame equals disempowerment. When you blame someone for something, this is what you do. You basically say, thank you, I blame you for this, and by the way, here's my power over that. That's what you're doing. So when you take responsibility for yourself, instead of blaming somebody, you actually have power over that. So power and responsibility are equal to each other. And I've learned all of this. And this is difficult. This is not easy. No one wants to take that time to look in the mirror. Let's admit it. That's why most of us golf all the time and stay busy and we go out, because we don't want to look in that mirror, because when we do, you're accountable for your life. You're accountable for yourself. You're accountable to changes that you need to make in your life. And there are two things that are going to happen. When you look in the mirror, you're going to either accept that you have to make changes and you're going to have courage because it's fearful, it's scary. Or you're going to ignore it, but that's when the suffering starts. I suffered because I knew I needed to leave and get divorced, and I ignored my soul's calling. When you ignore what you know, you start suffering. So when you go through this, be gentle with yourself. You have to have self-love and self-compassion and not judge yourself, because I judged myself sometimes, and it's already difficult enough. You don't need to do that to yourself. So now that you're in the driver's seat of your own life, congratulations, you chose yourself first. We're heading over towards that happily ever after I was telling you about. But we have to get by fear. We have to pass by fear. And it's a big, big roadblock. It is. I know for me, I didn't leave and get divorced because of fear. For most people, we are not going to reach our highest potential because of fear. That's it, fear. So President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And I agree, except for he didn't know that he also should fear, or I feared, expensive divorce litigation. It's scary, trust me. I had to put a divorce joke in there. All right, so let's look at fear. We have to understand it, disempower it to get around it. So fear is a sensation, it's a feeling, it comes upon us, right? It's triggered by something. It's triggered by your thoughts, believe it or not. Most of the time, it's self-induced by our own thoughts. So yes, someone's gonna say, well, what about the survival that kicks in, fight, flight, or freeze? That's true. However, I don't think I'm gonna see any of us running down Goodlet Road because a lion escaped from the Naples Zoo chasing you. And if I do see that, I'm gonna record it. And I'm also hoping that it's the flight that kicked in for you. But honestly, it's self-induced. It's our thoughts. So we think about the past and something triggers us. We're afraid. We think about our negative self-talk and we become afraid. We think about the future. So much of it is the future. It's about what if not? What if this happens to me? What if it doesn't happen to me? It's the worry and anxiety that we all have. Well, Eckhart Tolle, this amazing person with this amazing concept, talked about the power of now. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I love this concept. It changed my life. And he says that there's no such thing as the future or the past. They both exist in our minds only. They're thoughts. The only moment in time as a human that we will actually ever experience is right here, right now. So, 10 minutes after my talk, when you're saying, oh, that was good, it's still going to be the present moment. Tomorrow, when you wake up and you're talking about how you had a fun time today, it's going to be the present moment. So our entire life is just a continuous present moment that we experience. When you realize that, you're like, wow. Because I used to spend so much time in my head. So this concept not only allowed me to go by fear, it also allowed me to experience my life more, to be present and aware, right here. Because this is the moment of power. This is when you make conscious decisions and choices for your life right here in the present moment. So when we understand that and we use this concept, it will help you maneuver around fear. And after fear, we're going to head to happily ever after, like I promised, but we have to look at revealed true happiness. So what is revealed true happiness? I say reveal because we're showing you something or we're finding something that's been there already. That's why it's reveal. True inner happiness is always with us. It's internally generated. It's kind of a spiritual experience, like I experienced when I said I surrendered. We feel this attitude of gratitude just for existing. You know, it's being happy about your life without needing anything outside of yourself. It's that connection to consciousness. It's knowing that you're enough just as you are. You need nothing else. So that is true inner happiness. And that is the happiness is an inside job. You know, if he and I only really knew what it meant and did the inner work to reveal this to ourselves. But I will say that most of us are living happiness is an outside job. And I'll tell you why, including myself. Because we love doing things to make ourselves happy. I get a mani-pedi, it makes me happy. You know, you hang out with friends who make you laugh, it makes you happy. You go on vacation, you buy a car, it makes you happy. You experience achievements and successes, it makes you happy. The problem is all of that is conditional, which means you always need another hit of it for the happiness to continue. That's why you hear people say things like, oh, just that one thing that will bring me true happiness, whether it's the retirement or if it's the dream home, the love of your life. You're always looking for something else because it's really not true happiness. So true happiness is an inside job. My grandfather used to always tell me that. He used to say, be happy. If I only knew he was as smart as the Dalai Lama, who also says, he does. He says it's part of human purpose, our human purpose to be happy. So, this is what I'm teaching my daughter. It is. Because for me, if you have true inner happiness and you enjoy all your outer happiness, I mean, I know I want it all. What an amazing way to live. And when you know thyself, when you know this true inner happiness, the authentic you, and that's the state that you live your life in, unconditional self-love is just the automatic side effect. And I realized this for myself, and this is what I did realize for my midlife adversity, and this is what I'm teaching my daughter. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll hand this to you. Wow. Amazing. So our next speaker, we have Don Fedor. He is the author of Awaken to Unconditional Love, New Wisdom from 20 Spiritual Masters. He came to us through Diane Scribner, who you'll hear from later. She's our stage manager for today and our speaker coach. And she made a really strategic introduction between Don and I during the beginning of COVID because he had been working on some books for about a decade and he needed to get them published. So we worked with him. His book is beautifully illustrated. You'll have to see it out in the lobby. He's got a great talk to offer you today. Would you please welcome Don Fedor?
In the wonderful words of Dr. Seuss, a great prophet, sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it's a memory. How many moments in your life have been life-changing, and yet to understand the value of it took a long time? For me, probably the most important turning point of my life happened before some of you were born, 1976, June 7th, Father's Day that year. And at the time, by all accounts, I had it made. I was in my 20s, had an excellent job, worked for a well-known company, career prospects unlimited. I was in good shape, dedicated cyclist, and I was in love. What more could the boy ask for? And yet somehow deep inside in all of this, I was fairly miserable. And I attributed it at the time to being in the wrong place. Giant corporation, some of you have heard about, Johnson & Johnson. And thinking maybe I was in the wrong field, corporate finance. But I had spent so much effort, time, even through a master's degree, to have the opportunities that were unfolding in front of me. It was unthinkable that I was going to do anything different until that moment on the 7th. And I happened to be out on a training ride with some fellow cyclists. We were going over a bridge, and I missed one really important fact, and that was there was an expansion slot about yay big running right along next to me. And I dropped my front wheel into it, went down, bam, right up on the handlebars, and the only thing out in front of that set of bars, my face. And also I should mention that these pre-helmet days, they weren't even available back in the 70s. So ambulance came along, carted me to the hospital. A few days later, they repaired the left side of my face that I had flattened beautifully. Not that my face needed any more improvement. And then I was taken to my parents' home for the weeks it was going to take me to get back on my feet. So I'm lying there in bed, pretty busted up. And I realized I was happier there, going back to the inside job, I was happier there than I was out in my normal world. Something had to change. So when I finally got back to work, I decided career shift, no matter what it was, I needed to do it. So went under extensive career counseling, did an entire battery of psychological tests, which we are not going to talk about today. Thank you. And I opened myself up to the question, what would be more fulfilling? And thankfully, because of asking that question, I gained some access to the internal trainers at Johnson & Johnson, and they gave me a glimpse of what I might want to do. And that eventually led to a PhD program in organizational behavior and then on to a career in academia, which was a much better fit. Thank you. So if the accident had only forced my hand to make a career change, it would have been a blessing. What I came to realize, back to Dr. Zeus, was that that wasn't really even the half of it. The other thing the accident left me with was being prone to severe migraine headaches. And I know some of you probably know what those feel like. And at the time, what they could give me was codeine, really effective at mitigating the pain. Also wiped out my motivation to do anything. I mean, literally a blank TV screen, entertaining. So I knew once again something had to shift, but I didn't know what. Luckily, was talking to a friend, and he goes, because I was telling him my dilemma, and he goes, oh, Don, you need to do TM. What the heck was that? Some of you probably know what it is. It's the abbreviation for Transcendental Meditation. I didn't know what it was at the time, but luckily I had a follow-up with the surgeon a few weeks later, and I asked him about it. He said he didn't know much about this meditation stuff either, but anything that would relax the nerves that I did such a great job, my translation, damaging in my face and neck might help. So a couple months later, I took the training, and darn, it helped a lot. So being curious about this stuff, it was like, well, what is this meditation stuff? Come to find out, it was the mainstay of a whole bunch of spiritual traditions that I knew nothing about growing up as a Presbyterian in the 50s and 60s. Wasn't part of the repertoire. So not only did meditation open up a new world of thought, philosophy, perspectives to me, but it also brought in something very unexpected. And that was experiences that were hard to explain. And one early on was I was doing a meditation before going out for dinner. And in that meditation, I saw my niece, who was about 3 years old, falling down the stairs in my parents' home. I didn't give it much thought. Images come and go in meditation, no big deal. Got home that night and found out That's exactly what had happened. Oh, there's more here again than I thought. So now we're going to fast forward through lots of years. We don't need to know how many. But I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia, professor at Georgia Tech in the business school. Life is going well. And I thought I had built a very good balance for my life. Over here, career, relationships, home, staying in good shape, doing all the things that somebody does to have a successful life. Over here, let's just call it an avocation, that I quietly maintained daily meditation practice, would go off to an occasional workshop that looks interesting, but I didn't tell this part of my life much about this part of my life. But again, I thought I had a good balance. And again, be careful of what friends suggest to you. Because a friend called me and said she was going to a workshop up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. On intuition, subtle energy, I might be interested. And she also happened to slip in, the guy who heads it up, David, has a reputation for bringing forth extraordinary experiences for people. I didn't put much stock in that. But 3 weeks later, I'm up at the workshop. And first day, we're doing a very simple exercise. And if you would, imagine just a long, rectangular conference room. And the exercise was one at a time. Everybody stood outside the conference room. One at a time, we stood at the end of the conference room. And the key was our eyes were closed. And then each person, all our fellow participants, they came in, circled around us, and walked out. And our only instructions were, see what you can detect and feel and pick up from these people who, I didn't know most of them anyway, but with your eyes closed. Try to use your subtle senses. Okay, finished up and I was pretty pleased. I actually picked up things from these people I didn't know. So I'm exiting the room and I'm ready to share with David, hey, I got something. And as I approached him, he goes, Don, what do you think of horses? What? My, brain just went on overdrive. Is this part of the exercise? What's the deal here? He didn't elaborate, so I finally said, big animals I don't want to deal with. He paused. I know, no offense to horse lovers here, please. He paused and then said, what about a group of men? And although I was physically standing there with David, well, I snapped into a totally different reality, as real as being here in this moment with you today. I'm standing on a hill. It's a bright, sunny day. I feel light chainmail on my chest. I can tell you without looking that I'm wearing a white tunic with a red cross embroidered front and back. And in my hands, I'm holding a sword that is honed to a razor's edge. And I can hear familiar sounds of battle all around me. And as I shift my focus down to the base of the hill, there are about a dozen men, ragtag soldiers, no consistent uniforms, somewhat crude weapons. And as they start to advance towards me, I know a number of things. I'm on my own. It's fatal. And the reason I'm on my own is because I feel so deeply betrayed by all the authorities that sent me out time after time to slaughter in the name of God, Christ, the church, the king, whatever. I can no longer live with this. So I've chosen to give up my life in the only way that I know how, and that is in battle. And as the men start to advance towards me, there is complete calm as I await my fate and the fate of those that I will take with me on that day. And then I snapped out of it. And I'm standing back in front of David, and he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I thought so." He turned and walked away. Okay, reality, what just happened? I stood there and shook. I had no idea how I could have gone from our workshop to that scene that was so real and back here probably in an instant. And the most important question was, why? Well, during the weekend, I got the sense that I had to make a decision. Because remember this sort of avocation over here? I was either going to shut it down, maybe just maintain a little meditation practice, but everything else, we're finished, done, too weird, gone. Or the other option that you can probably guess is stepping more fully into it to find out why this happened. And given that I'm talking to you today and revealing this, which most people don't know about my life, yeah, I knew that this had to become more of a priority. And as I followed the night and had more experiences with him at other times, I realized that the night and I had something, or a number of things in common. We were both very highly trained. We were both successful. And we both had sort of titles or honors in our society. And yet, in both cases, there was something missing here. That fulfillment, that peace. And so, over time, as I have continued with all of this, I came to realize that I had a quest. And it had to do with unconditional love. Because the night somehow prompted me to ask a question I don't think I would have asked in this lifetime. How do I more fully embody unconditional love? Still working on it. And you might wonder, as I did a lot, was this real? And for my generation, is it Memorex? Was it symbolic? Or is the guy in front of you just totally delusional, has a great imagination? And please don't ask the people in the audience who know me, because I know they'll pick number 4. But I've come to believe that, going back to Dr. Seuss's quote, each one of us has had those defining moments in our lives that have come along to redirect us. And so what have those moments in your life directed you to do? What is your quest in this life? What's been calling to you deeper than external success or what we do day to day? And I'll close with a quote from Carl Jung, who said, "Your vision will only become clear when you look into your heart. Those who look outside, they dream. Those who look inside, they awaken." And my hope this day and every day is that we can awaken together.
Great job. So I'm excited to introduce Paige, who is our in-house recording artist. You can see her on Spotify, and she's going to be singing an original song, "Tell Me You Love Me." And I want to give you a tiny bit of a backstory about Paige. She was hit by a car in 2018 as a pedestrian. She was 22 years old. She was coming out of waitressing at late at night and suffered some pretty severe injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. Her mother, Roberta, became her caretaker. She thought she was an empty nester and was out in California flew back to Ohio and nursed Paige back to health. And so the two of them together, they're a beautiful pair. We did a photo shoot with them yesterday, and together they're writing a book called She Looks Fine, because it's all about the traumatic brain injury and how someone can look fine and they still have the traumatic brain injury to suffer with. And so Paige is such a beautiful soul. She is so gifted. You will absolutely be wowed by her voice and her stage presence. And I wanted to say thank you for coming down from Ohio to be here with us. And without further ado, I bring you Paige.
Testing, testing. How we all doing tonight? Good? Some amazing authors. They have me tearing up and really in my feelings, huh? Tell me you love me. Tell me you don't. Tell me you love me, and I'll say it too. I am your baby, and you are my boo. Together forever, I'll always love you. Nowadays, people, they like to play games. I stay clear and tread on my own. I don't mind if I'm alone. That's just fine. I'm all in or I'm all out. Tell me you love me. Tell me you do. Tell me you love me, and I'll say it too. If I give you my heart, it's yours to keep. But this is a game. Stay light on your feet. I like my alone time, so you gotta roll with that. I'm not like the other girls, so know what I'm about. Figure it out, boy, figure it out. Don't waste my time. I'm all in or I'm all out, so tell me you love me. Tell me you do. Tell me you love me, and I'll say it too. Tell me you love me. Tell me you do. Tell me you love me. I might say it too. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me. You love me. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow. Is that talent or what? Our last speaker before our intermission is Becky Savage. Becky Savage came to us through her cousin, Karen, who was taking a writing course that I offered online at the beginning of COVID. And Karen was in this course, and she private messaged me, and she said, "My cousin Becky needs to write a book. can she come into this class? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, no problem. So Becky came to us and signed on to do a book, and then she was off to the races writing, and then we didn't hear from her for a while. Because sometimes it takes timing for your book to germinate and really come to fruition. And so, had her book come out a year ago, it wouldn't have been the book that it is that came out in December. When it came out this December 16th, it stayed at #1 new release in her category for weeks. Her book, One Choice, How 10 Seconds Can Change Your Life, will absolutely inspire you and tear your heart out as well. So Becky flew in from South Bend, Indiana last night. She is happy to not be in any snowstorms right now, and we welcome her to stage.
Family. I would like to talk to you guys a little bit tonight about my family. This picture that you'll see right here is a picture of my family. My 4 beautiful boys, who are also beautiful boys, creatures of habits. Like April said, we are from South Bend, Indiana, and we don't really see the sun shine for about 3 months over winter. So by the time spring break comes along, we're all anxious to get out of South Bend and get some sunshine. So every year, we would go to Siesta Key Beach, which is not actually too far from here. Like I said, my kids were creatures of habit, so we would stay at the same beach every year, and the same condo actually as well. So I, as a mother, last-minute mother, like to use that time to get a family picture taken. So every year, I would bring in a photographer, and we would get our family pictures taken there. So this picture, when I go around and I talk, I explain to them that this is a very, very special picture to me, because it was actually the last picture that was taken of our family as a family of 6. The following summer, spring break, we went to that same beach, the same location, and had our family picture taken. And this picture right here is what our family looked like. This is what our family looked like after poor choices were made by my 2 older sons, Nick and Jack. My 2 older sons, Nick was 19 and Jack was 18. He had just turned 18. 2 weeks before they both passed away. They both passed away on June 14, 2015. After attending graduation parties with friends. They were participating in underage drinking, and at some point during their time there, they were offered a prescription pill, and they decided to experiment, and neither one of them woke up the next morning. June 15th, I remember that morning so clearly. Being a mother of 4, I used the weekends a lot to catch up on household chores. That morning, I was going around their rooms picking up laundry. And I walked into Jack's room. And if you're a mother, you'll understand this. A lot of times we just sit and stare at our kids while they sleep. Watch them breathe and just enjoy it. That morning, I walked into Jack's room and I was picking up his dirty clothes. And I stopped and I was staring at him and watching him sleep. I remember thinking in my head, he is such a beautiful kid. He looks like an angel sleeping. Little did I know the prophecy that thought would hold for me that morning. I continued to pick up his laundry in his room. As I'm talking to him, Jack, it's time to get up and get things moving today. Dad has things that he would like you and Nick to help him with. He continued to sleep. Jack, This is not going to be one of those mornings where you're sleeping till noon. It's time to get up. And then it kind of piqued my interest because as I watched him, I thought, is he breathing? No, don't be silly. Of course he is. So I walked over and started shaking him. Jack, get up. Jack didn't get up. A little bit of panic starts to set in, especially being a mother who's also a nurse. Like, Jack. Jack continued to sleep. And I remember the thought going through my mind, what is going on in my house? I dropped the laundry that I had collected. I ran downstairs to grab my cell phone and I called 911. I cannot even begin to explain to you what is going through your mind at that time. I ran upstairs. I'm on the phone with the operator from 911, and they're trying to talk me through what to do. And I said, listen, I'm a nurse. I know what to do. Somebody please get here and help. That's all I remember saying was, I need help. I put my cell phone down. I put it on speaker, and I picked up my beautiful Jack out of his bed and laid him on the floor. And I initiated CPR. It seemed like an eternity had gone by. I remember she said, they're on their way. They're on their way. They're going to be there. They'll help you. In my mind, I'm thinking, hurry, 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 because I know time is of the essence. And then I was also hollering for Nick, my other son, my 19-year-old, because I knew that Nick was at home. He had been sleeping in the basement with his friends after they came home that night. Nick. So I'm screaming, Nick, I need your help, Nick. And Nick never came. Paramedics did arrive and took over the resuscitation attempts on Jack. At some point during my time that morning, a police officer attached himself to me, basically. He was following me everywhere in my house. I was pacing. I was frantic. I didn't know what I was. I just was confused. And he was just there for support. At some point, I saw one of the paramedics that was resuscitating Jack get up and leave and head downstairs into my basement. I remember I was looking at him and thinking, where are you going? Why are you leaving him? And then slowly, they turned into please, please, please don't stop on Jack. Please don't give up on Jack. Jack's a fighter. Please don't stop. Little did I know that he was responding to another 911 call out of my house. My other son, Nick, who was in the basement sleeping with friends, they heard my screaming, my calls, and they went to awaken Nick, and they found Nick in the same shape as Jack. I cannot even begin to explain to you what goes through your mind. I remember I was screaming, what is going on in my house? I had no idea at this point that they had experimented with prescription drugs that night. I thought, is there a gas leak in my house? What happened? What could be going on? And I remember one of their friends came up the stairs and looked me straight in the eye. And I probably wasn't very nice because I was just screaming at everybody. I said, what is going on? And he said they experimented with Oxy last night. And that was like the biggest blow ever. What? Oxy? Where did that come? How did they get their hands on that? Well, all these thoughts going through your mind. Nick and Jack's earthly journey ended that day on June 14, 2015. It's one of the worst days in my life. Since then, my husband and I have had so many questions. How could this be available to them? Where did it come from? And why wouldn't my boys just say no? We may never know all of the answers to those questions, but what we do know and what we have learned over the years is that there is a serious problem with substance abuse in our communities. Over the last 12 months, over 100,000 people in our communities have died of an overdose. To put that number into perspective, that is equivalent to 274 Boeing 747 jet airplanes crashing in our country in 1 year. That is one airplane crash in our country every day and a half, every 2 days. Now, if we had that happening, we would all be saying, what can we do to get these airplanes to stop crashing? Why are we not saying that with substance misuse and abuse? My husband and I took about a good year to sit, put our family first, focus on our other two boys. My youngest was 11 at the time, and my then middle child, which is now my oldest, was 15 at the time. So we really focused on them and moving forward. But the more we started thinking, we decided that we are going to turn our story into advocacy. So what did we do? We got involved in our community. I called up our police station. I called up the sheriff's office. I made meetings with the police chief, meetings with the DEA. I wanted to know why these pills are available. Why is there so many out there? How could these be available to kids? And we started collaborating. I remember the first opportunity we had was an event with the DEA. It was the DEA Take Back Day, which they do twice a year in every community across this country. It's every April and every October. We got some of our volunteers together, lots of family and friends, and we set up at a fire station house, and we advertised it. Clean out your medicine cabinets. Dispose of your medications for free. I think we even had coffee and donuts, trying to entice people to come. People came, and I think we collected somewhere around 260 pounds of pills. So if you think about that, that's incredible. You know how much one pill weighs. And if one pill could potentially take somebody's life, that could be potentially a lot of lives saved. So we started doing it every 6 months. And the last pill pickup that we did, we had over 25 different locations across our community. Volunteers that manned every location, fire and police officers there. And we picked up just under 12,000 pounds of pills in one 4-hour period in my small town of South Bend, Indiana. So when I say that there's a problem out there, there's a problem. But we can also be the solution. We can channel that into solutions. So we started doing that. We started getting involved. We also started talking about our story, Nick and Jack's story. As painful as it is, we know that we can connect with people by talking about Nick and Jack. And we know that in every crowd that I talk, there's a Nick and a Jack out there that needs to hear this story. Because would Nick and Jack have made a better choice that night had they known what the potential outcome of that could be. We also started a foundation. It's called the 525 Foundation, lovingly named after Nick and Jack's hockey numbers. Jack was number 5, and Nick was number 25. Our foundation has a mission to foster prevention in communities by talking about things, by promoting education and awareness so that no other families have to go through what we did. So today, I would like to leave all of you with a challenge. I would love to have all of you think about how you can make one choice in your communities that you can make a difference to hopefully impact your communities in a positive way, because you never know if that one choice is potentially going to save somebody's life.
Wow. So we're going to take an intermission. I do want to go through a couple things with you. All of our speakers, the 3 that you heard now and the 3 that you'll hear after intermission, have signed copies of their books. They'd be happy to take pictures with you with their book. They're already pre-signed, and there's a sticker on it that says signed copy. You can get all of them, including our Sober Moms, Happy Moms book, which was published last April. 12 anonymous moms submitted their stories of recovery, and so we wanted to include that book as well. So you can get all of these books plus the Sober Mom book for $100. You could also get buy one, get one on Sober Moms or on American Cop. American Cop was the book I mentioned to you earlier. That was our first book that we published in February of 2019. And our final special is free with any purchase, Manuscript Magic, which just is hot off the press. We just got all those books in on Thursday, and this is Heather Desrocher's first solo book. Actually, they came in Friday. They came in yesterday, so they are literally hot off the press. So with any book purchase, we'd love to give you a copy of that as well. So enjoy. The bar will be open. The bookstore is open. Take some cookies, some cake, use the restroom, and we will regroup in about 20 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back. I know there are a few still out in the lobby. If you can hear me, we're starting. So I had a few people come up to me during the intermission, and I was negligent to tell you, in your brochure, under each author's bio, is their contact information. Because I know some of you have podcasts, or you have other, for example, Becky speaks at schools. She does school assemblies, and her goal is to get the books into the hands of teenagers. It's written in a way that's meaningful for teenagers. So if you have any ideas or if you have any opportunities for our speakers, we highly encourage you to take their email address, send them an email, tell them what their talk meant to you, and of course, leave an Amazon review. That will help other people find their book. So our next speaker is a woman who I was connected to before we published together. We knew each other, and she reached out to me, and we had a great time, Heather and I, working with Valentina to get her book finally free, Rising Above Emotional Entrapment, together. And I was so pleased when she stood up and said she wanted to be part of this event and speak. She has such a presence on the stage and has worked very hard on putting her talk together. And I think her story will really wow you. It'll be amazing. She has quite a life. So thank you, Valentina, and welcome to the stage.
Do you ever feel that life is just one choice after another? All our experiences begin. It's not on? Real close. Like that? Oh. Okay. All right. Do you ever feel that all of our life is one choice after another? And all of our experiences begin with a choice. And those choices determine the paths that we will take. And actually, the whole nature of the choices we make has everything to do with the quality of our life. Portia Nelson was a poet and songwriter of the 1950s. In her poem, Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters, she expresses the conversations going on in her head as she struggles emotionally to make right choices in her life. This is her poem. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, but it's not my fault. And it takes me forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in. I can't believe I'm in this same place again, but it's not my fault. And again, it takes me a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I fall in anyway. I get it. It is my fault. I know where I am and I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down another street. How long does it take us to finally walk down another street? As a child, I probably would have said that I was always on the wrong street. Our childhood journeys are the stepping stones of our belief system. And my journey began in Germany when I was born after the Second World War. I was born in a convent, and my parents had lost one another during the war. And my mother was not able to take care of me at that time for a number of reasons. So the nuns found a wonderful couple that decided to take me in. I lived an idyllic life, running around in the forests, chasing butterflies and bunnies and playing with the duckies in the pond. And I believed that this couple was my family. They were probably some of the happiest moments in my life. But when I was about 3.5 years old, that all ended. My parents, who had found each other, came back to claim me. I was their child after all. They brought me to a displaced persons camp, a Ukrainian displaced persons camp, because they were Ukrainian, so obviously so was I. I don't recall how that all happened, but I know I was terrorized. I believed that I had been kidnapped. And I spent the next several months hiding in a corner in this quiet desperation, longing for the family that I thought had abandoned me. I didn't know then that the couple that brought me there were actually my real parents. But as I watched all of these strangers milling about around me from my corner, I was always fearful that someone else was going to come and take me away. But something strange began to happen. As I was going through this emotional trauma, I began to sense a presence around me, a presence that was surrounding me in a feeling of peacefulness. And it seemed to be directing me to look into the eyes of all these strangers. And as I did, intuitively, I felt their deep pain and sorrow. These were all people, after all, that had just survived the war. And I connected with their vulnerability, and I stayed with that feeling of being connected with them, and it actually eased my own pain. But then something else happened. I heard in my head the words, "Pomyatai, pomyatai," which means in Ukrainian, remember. I was being told that I needed to remember this experience. And I began to collect all of my emotions and thoughts and everything that was going on inside me in some deep crevice of my mind for safekeeping. This presence stayed with me for a while as I assimilated into this camp environment, and I got to know my real parents. I got comfortable with them. Mostly I felt safe with them. And I even started learning Ukrainian. As I was adjusting to this whole new environment, again, everything changed for me. When my parents and I and many, many of the other people there were immigrating to the United States, or America, as I always called it, or we always called it. Again, there was a terrifying journey, more chaos, more changes, moving about everywhere, and I was always terrified of crowds because I always thought I would get lost in the crowd or that someone would take me away. Near the end of that journey, I recall my father lifting me up and putting me on his shoulders and telling me to look in a certain area. And I saw all these people, we were all looking, they were looking at something. And as I was trying to see, I saw her. It was the Statue of Liberty. And I saw, as the ship was moving, I watched her move past us. And I remember the crown. And I felt something at that time, that it was something very special. On to our final destination, which was Detroit, Michigan. Again, another experience, more chaos, more changes constantly, and a new language. All of a sudden, I'm hearing another new language. All of these changes created a lot of instability in me. And I felt like I was standing on a rowboat that was tipping over back and forth, and I never knew when it was going to finally tip over. So there was a lot of instability, and this created insecurity in me. But nevertheless, I did adjust, and I learned the language, as you can hear. So we grew up in the Ukrainian ethnic community, and every Sunday we went to church, but every Saturday I got to go to Ukrainian school with all of my Ukrainian friends. That's where, and I know there's some Ukrainians here and they know what I'm talking about. But it was a place where we gathered, where I actually began to feel like I connected here, and this is where I belonged. Because in my other environments, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, and it did keep me insecure for a while. The thing that I loved the most about Ukrainian school was the music, the singing, the dancing. I absolutely loved it and brought great joy to my life. But when I was 18 years old, my life turned upside down. Both my parents got sick with cancer, and they died 4 months apart. I was left with a 12-year-old brother to take care of. And I had just graduated from high school and taken a full-time job at the gas company. I didn't know that that was really the first step to my independence. And independence I was in no way ready for, nor that I desire it. But I knew that I had to be strong now. I had to be strong because I was head of household. I had a young boy to take care of. So I set out to figure out this life of independence and adult responsibilities, which I knew nothing about. In fact, I couldn't even pay a bill. My parents kept me very, very sheltered. And because we really had no relatives in this country, I depended on the good advice of all of my well-meaning friends who all wanted to save me. Okay. Lesson 1, I was to find a husband. And I didn't have to look very far because they already had someone in mind. So before I knew it, I was married to a charming, European, well-educated man, 8 years my senior, who was more than happy to take over my life. And guess what? I didn't have any of those adult responsibilities anymore. So I decided to go back to school and pursue my dream of becoming a teacher. I graduated. I completed Montessori education training. I gave birth to my beautiful baby girl. And I started a Montessori preschool business with my husband. I loved teaching, absolutely loved teaching. And everything went well for a while. The business was growing successfully, but our marriage was falling apart. After a long and difficult emotional divorce, I was left devastated and deflated. I knew I had to make some big changes in my life. And as I was trying to figure out what went wrong, I realized that I had never given myself time to grow up. So I embarked on the long journey into self-discovery. I was going to figure out what I needed to know to make better decisions in my life. So I read everything I could think of and took seminars, took classes, studied. And I learned that all of our experiences are triggered by unconscious choices. Unconscious choices that our subconscious mind took in when we were very young and when we had no filters. So we believed everything. We believed everything we heard, everything we saw, everything we experienced as true. The subconscious mind is basically just a receptacle for information. It does not evaluate what goes in there. So that's how we gather up all of our beliefs and everything we believe about ourselves, including our self-image. These beliefs then turn into what we think about. So as we think about those things. So have you ever asked yourself, why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep happening to me? Why is this always happening to me? And again, how did I end up here again? How did I end up with the same guy again? And so forth. So I know some of you are familiar with that. The key words here are always and again. If you have to say that, then you know that there's some kind of a pattern going on. And you may be in a pattern that doesn't serve you well. So as you are dealing with all of these beliefs that may or may not be true, you begin thinking about them. They're in your thoughts. And when you're thinking about them, then they trigger off emotions. So now you're emoting about them, and you're feeling feelings about them, and they could be feelings of anger, they could be feelings of love, they could be, but you are responding to those thoughts that are based on beliefs that may or may not be true. So then it triggers off our actions. Now we are acting them out. And if you're in a pattern of thinking the same thing over and over again and feeling the same thing over and over again, and you're behaving over and over again the same way, then that becomes your reality. That's how we create our reality. Before I actually began searching, I always felt like I was treading water. Never drowning, but never able to get out of the water. But the writing of my book was my true therapy. It allowed me to really deeply and at a conscious level re-experience some of my behaviors and determine that, wow, now I understand why I've been doing these things. And as I learned more and more by unearthing more and more, I began to make better choices in my life because I was finally getting it. And suddenly I realized that, hey, I'm actually really on the right road now. I'm in the right path. So, each one of you, we can all do that. Life is all about experiencing and learning, experiencing and learning. What is going on in your life? Are you on the path that you want to be on? Are you making your dreams come true? Are you living the life you want to live? Only you can actually make that happen. And since we're all always on a life journey, we might as well take charge of the direction in which we are going and make it happen for ourselves. Finding the right road by honestly and openly, if you really are honest and want to seriously make a change, then you ask for the answers and they will come. And you will then find that you are also on the right street. Okay? So, as I've always said to my students, I will believe it for you until you believe it for yourself. Okay.
Well, our next speaker is a larger-than-life personality. He is a motivational speaker. He is funny, he's entertaining, and he wrote the book From Fear to Fulfillment, A Fight for Faith, Family, and Freedom. I welcome Elliott Haverlack.
Hey, before we start our journey together, I've got a few numbers that I want to share with you. The first one is 14,855. The second one is 8,401. Remember those. We're going to come back to them a little later. I'm standing up here in front of you wonderful people today, and I'm going to talk to you about fulfillment in your life. And you're probably sitting there thinking, who is this guy? And why should I listen to him? Those are great questions. Let's answer a couple of those right now. I'm an ordinary guy. I could be your next door neighbor, guy you passed on the street on the way in here today. I'm just an ordinary Joe. In this case, an ordinary Elliott. The first 23 years of my life were controlled by intense fear. I was born into a struggling lower middle class family. My parents were great. Heck, we didn't even know we were poor. But they both had chronic illnesses that crushed us both financially and spiritually. I was an awkward kid and was subjected to a bunch of bullying, probably because I had a weight problem. And it found me anywhere from overweight to morbidly obese. And that's a problem that I've struggled with the entirety of my life. In fact, I've gained and lost more than 1,500 pounds in my life. More really. It's more like 2,000. I don't count the 20, 30, and 40-pound losses in the real total. They have to be 50 or more to make it onto the tally sheet. By the time I entered my senior year of high school, I was on the precipice of 300 pounds. By the time that year ended, I was a slimmed down 180, and my dad had died. My mom left shortly thereafter, suffering from an intense depression. You know, with no parents and little hope, I descended into a rather dark place and made some poor life decisions. On New Year's Eve, 1980, I was high, drunk, and over 350 pounds. You see, I never thought I was good enough, strong enough, or smart enough to compete. This was fueled by fear and led to destructive living. On June 5th, 1981, fear was removed from my life. In its place, courage. An epiphany, to be sure. You see, I was sitting in a car in an unseemly section on the north side of Pittsburgh. I was terrorized. I was heading into a job interview, something I had done 5 or 6 times before, unsuccessfully. And all of a sudden a voice said to me, "You have nothing to fear but fear itself." And I thought, Franklin Delano Roosevelt? No, it was God, I think. And it was pretty cool, actually. And I got out of the car and I started up the stairs to the interview room and I said, "You are strong enough, you are smart enough, and you are good enough." And then I told myself, I'm not leaving this building today without a job. And I will never not have a job the rest of my life. And you know what? All that happened. Every bit of it. You know, before I even caught myself at the end of a long day of interviewing, I said to the senior manager, "You know, I promised myself I wasn't leaving here without a job, and I'd really like you to give me one right now." And amazingly, he said, "Okay, you start Monday." How about that? And you know, by the time I was 39, I sat on the management board of 2 divisions of a Fortune 500 company, the youngest and least formally educated person in the room. And then within 2 years of that, I walked away to continue my journey elsewhere. Then I spent the next 12 years of my life working with a small, mediocre, family-owned business, and we turned that into the 6th largest entity in the industry. And guess what? I walked away to continue my journey somewhere else. Next 10 years, I started a successful coaching and consulting business, and along with my wife, we developed our business, and we had almost 400 employees when we sold it in 2018. And then I retired. I became busier than I ever had been in my entire life. You see, the entirety of my life, I took time to volunteer. And I attacked volunteerism with the same passion and energy as I did my work. I stand in front of you today, a man who's had a full life, better than I ever imagined. Couldn't have imagined anything quite like it. It's the American dream personified, folks. So you're probably asking yourself, how did this ordinary guy live such an extraordinary life? Well, we're going to talk about that, but first we're going to talk about you. How's your life going? Great. And for everybody that says amazing, awesome for you. Some of you maybe not so amazing. Have you done more in your life than you ever thought reasonably possible? Is your life full? What if I told you there are vast resources out there, they're available to you, they're everywhere, and they're free? And in those resources is the key to fulfillment. You know, a pessimist says a glass is half empty, and an optimist says a glass is half full. I believe there are countless glasses. They're everywhere. They're just waiting for our discovery. But yet, many, if not most, don't bother to go look, or don't even realize them when they fortuitously stumble across them. It's amazing. They're out there, they're available to us, and we refuse to look or don't bother to look. Is it easy? Well, hell no, it's not easy. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy. God didn't say, I'm going to give you an easy life. What he did say was, I'm going to give you everything you need to live a life of abundance. And so he does. For me, being born in the greatest country ever, having wonderful parents and mentors, both blood and non-blood related, to help guide me, and an optimism that tells me that tomorrow can and will be better than today. These are the ingredients to fulfillment. So why do so many people fail to achieve that abundance they desire? Too hard? Life gets in the way? I think it's more than that. I think it's a failure to plan, coupled with an intense fear of the unknown. You know, life's an amazing journey. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what fulfillment might mean to each of us, because it might mean a little something different to each of us, right? For me, it's the inner peace and well-being that comes from winning. I love to win. And when I win, I love to teach other people how to win, thus setting off a powerful chain reaction. You know, this journey of life is the most important journey we'll ever take. We wouldn't get in our car without knowing where we were going, the route we were going to take, and most importantly, why we were going. But so many of us fail to consider any of this on the most important journey we ever take. And you know, just like any journey, we want that vessel that's going to get us there to be in tip-top shape. Like a car or an airplane, your body needs to be maintained properly. Our bodies are a gift from God. We must nourish our earthly tents with physical, mental, and spiritual exercise. For me, exercise for the body checks all three boxes. I've been exercising for 6 hours a week, 6 days a week, an hour a day, since 2006. I know, it's not working, right? Actually it is, you know. At 63 years old, I feel pretty darn good. I never have to go to the doctor. I don't have any sick days. I don't have any anxiety. I don't worry about too much. And more time for me to focus on finding fulfillment. Less time for all those counterproductive things that chalk up all of our lives all the time. So, we're going to go on this journey together with our healthy bodies, our healthy minds, and our healthy souls. And then we're going to push through, we're going to need courage because you are going to get tested. And courage isn't necessarily bravery, but I guess you could be both courageous and brave at the same time. Courage to me means standing up for one's principles without exception. Now, there's two enemies that are going to come in here and try to derail you, and those are greed and fear. Greed tells us, I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I need more and more and more. Baloney. Baloney. And fear, likely is the most frightening four-letter word there is, tells us we're not good enough, we're not strong enough, we're not smart enough. None of this is true. When we have the courage to push through, we can render greed and fear feckless. And then one day you're going to wake up and you're going to go, I'm winning. I am winning. And then, as I like to say, what we do when we win defines us. Because winning's just a tiny piece of it, folks. Just a tiny little piece. I hope you'll be driven to help others. You know, the need is so great. In this country, there's 327 million people. 35 million of them live in poverty. That's too damn many. You know, when you're gracious enough to give us this 3 hours together, during the 3 hours we're enjoying each other's company, 15 baby girls are going to be born that will suffer the horror of child abuse before they're 18. 6 young girls will be sold into sex trafficking. And 21 will die of a drug overdose. No, that's not right. It's 34. In 2020, it was 21. In 2021, it was 34. 50% increase. In these same 3 hours, 3 veterans are going to take their lives to suicide. Homelessness is at epidemic level. The mental health problems we have in this country are huge. And we hear very little about it. We're just too darn busy worrying about what bathroom we're going to use or what straw we're going to drink out of. Folks, it's time to stop worrying about your rights and start worrying about doing the right thing because they're very different. You know, when a guy that you haven't seen or talked to in 36 years invites you to his decommissioning from being a career military man, it was going to be really cool as a destroyer, I think, in the Boston Harbor. He invites you to that retirement, and unfortunately, due to a bureaucratic snafu, you end up not being able to go because the invitation didn't make it in time for you to get arrangements. And then 3 years later, he shows up on your doorstep. Huh. He says, I want to thank you for saving my life. I know I did a lot of drugs back in college, but I mean, come on. What are you talking about? He tells me the whole story. And I remember every stinking detail. To me, it was nothing. It was just what you did. To him, it was life-saving. That's fulfillment, folks. I want to introduce you to a woman that I'm going to call Jill. Mostly because that was her name. And I haven't talked to Jill in over a decade. But I am Jill about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I said, I want to tell your story as part of a speech. And she graciously said, if your speech is going to help anybody, I want my story to be part of it. I met Jill in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Woohoo! And Jill was in an abusive marriage with an alcoholic husband. I met her as part of an interviewing process. I immediately was taken to her and I hired her on the spot. She quickly became one of the best employees we had. A year and a half later, my company decided we were going to move our offices to Pittsburgh. Jill was terrorized. She'd never imagined leaving her beloved Scranton. I coached her for, probably 2 or 3 months, and finally she said, I'm going to try it. And I said, you're going to love it. And I ended up in Clark Summit. Clark Summit in the house. I ended up in Clark Summit in a little restaurant with Jill and her sister. Jill excused herself. I still don't know if this was planned or not. Jill excused herself, and her sister and I were alone at the table for a moment. And she looked at me and she said, if anything happens to my sister, my family will have you killed. I said, well, good to know. Nothing bad's going to happen to your sister. In fact, nothing bad did. A whole lot good. She got remarried. 2 beautiful girls. A 30-year career at a Fortune 500 company, made it to the director level. She's living a full life, the one God wanted for her all along. But she had to push through her fear to get there. You know, last summer, interesting thing, I was doing a COVID clean out of my closet. COVID clean out on aisle 6. And I found a box, and in that box was an envelope that I'd never opened. And I said, wonder what's in here. Opened it up. It was a note from Jill, written 21 years ago. Think about that, folks. It said, thanks for saving my life. I hadn't done anything. This got her to push past her fears. I was blessed because she stayed on the team. She's one of the best employees we had. She made the transition awesome. But to her, it was life-saving. That's fulfillment, folks. You all probably have stories just like those. You just don't know it. Dig in and look at them. Find them. Who helped you? Have you thanked them? If you haven't, get on it and get thanking right now. You know, it takes a bit of work to plow the field and sow the seeds of fulfillment. But I promise you, the harvest is great. And when you lift other people up, they'll be blessed. And you will be blessed. I promise you, it's true. I'm going to close by talking about responsibility. You see, I think it's all of our responsibilities for making the world just a little better for us having been here. Funny thing about responsibility is it's 2 words in one. It's response and ability. Y'all have the ability. What's your response? What's your response? If not us, who? If not now, when? Oh, let's write those numbers. Almost forgot. Those are the numbers of my life. I lived in fear for 8,401 days. That second number is going up every day. And will continue to go up until God calls me home. You know, it doesn't really matter what your numbers are, folks. If you've been around for 1,000 days or 30,000 days, it's not too early and it's not too late. Because if you ain't dead, you ain't done. And the most important number we're going to talk about today is the number 1, and that stands for you. You can and will make a difference.
Great job.
What's that?
Well, we are so blessed to have so many amazing authors here this afternoon, as you can see. And now we get to hear from Paige again. She's singing her original song, which she's wrote, and it's called Through the Storm. Welcome back, Paige.
I just want to say thank you so much, April, for having me here tonight, and all of these authors. Through the Storm can actually relate to what we're talking about. It's going through the storm, picking yourself back up and moving forward, and taking your story and positively influencing the world. This one's a tough one for me, so.
You gotta make it through the storm to see the other side. You gotta make it through the storm to see the brighter side. Every time you fall down, you gotta get back up. Do you feel me there? Every time you fall down, you gotta get back up. I know you feel me there. Oh, you can make it through whatever life decides to grab and throw at you. Yeah, you can make it through all of the lightning strikes and all the thunder booms. You gotta make it through the storm to see the other side. You gotta make it through the storm to see the brighter side.
Sing with me.
Every time you fall down, you gotta get back up. Do you feel me there?
Do you feel me there?
Every time you fall down, you gotta get back up. And I know you feel me there.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You guys can actually add my music on Apple and Spotify. I'm Paige, capital letters. You can add me on Instagram at Paige's Vocals, and there's a business card in all of your packets. Please meet me outside. I would love to take pictures and meet you guys. Thank you.
So I've been excited to introduce my right-hand gal, Heather Davis Desrocher. As I mentioned to you earlier, our first book we published in February of 2019, and I didn't have Heather by my side for that book. And through Shantae, who is here today, she made the strategic, divine appointment for Heather and I to meet up at Starbucks. And since August of 2019, she has helped on every single book. Without her, we couldn't do any of this. So the funny thing is, though, she hadn't done her own book. And I pushed her, and I pushed her, and I pushed her. And we finally have Manuscript Magic, 7 Simple Steps to Writing a Book, which is simple to read, it's simple to understand, and it's her peeling back the layers of how to write a book based on her experience working with so many authors. So I welcome Heather to the stage and just say thank you for all you do for us.
I have always loved books. Books are magic for me. Books can take us to another time and place while they educate and entertain us. Books can offer so many things. Books can help us learn about ourselves and expand our understanding of the world around us. I loved books so much that I became an English teacher so that I could share my passion about words with young people. But even though I had a Harvard education, and even though I was a teacher of writing, I didn't see myself as an author. Who was I to write a book compared to my favorite authors, Wayne Dyer, Byron Katie, Eckhart Tolle, Louise Hay? These were incredible humans who had done something that was beyond my reach. Even when I became an editor and I helped other people, many of you here in this room, write your own book, I still didn't see myself as an author. My superpower was in helping others get what they needed to write their books. As one of my authors pointed out to me, I know how to hold your hand and kick your butt at the same time. And it's very effective. I liked the idea of writing a book. I had lots of ideas for books, but the actual sitting down and writing the book, not so much. Has anyone had that experience in this room? But who was I to help other people do something that I hadn't done? So, what happened to change all that? Why didn't I see myself as an author? You'd probably think I was pretty qualified for that. It's because of one of the things that probably everyone in this room and everyone in the world has experienced. One of the most universal conditions that we experience as humans is doubt. Anyone in this room never had any doubt? Self-doubt is so strong for many of us. It keeps us from achieving our dreams. It keeps us from contributing to the world in a meaningful way, as Elliott had talked about. Fear and doubt are probably kind of like this, right? So we all experience these doubts, and I experienced doubts about writing my book. Have you experienced doubts in your life about things? How did you get past them? Hopefully you had an April in your life. That helped me. So, how did my book happen? What's the story behind it? Well, the seed for my book was planted back in March of 2020, almost 2 years ago, during an I'm Booked podcast, where April and I talked about the mistakes that authors make. Now, you might wonder what some of those mistakes are, and I'm going to share a couple with you right now, with permission from the people who I'm talking about. One of our authors didn't want to use his real name. He had a pen name. We laughed at him. We said, absolutely not. We are about raising global consciousness. You have to authentically be who you are. And his name is on his book, the correct one. And I think it was a good choice. One of our other authors, who calls himself ordinary, although he's not ordinary at all, encouraged me to share this, actually suggested it, so we have total permission for this one. He used the word besmirched. What does that even mean? Not once, not twice, but 3 times in the same paragraph. Boris and I had a very good laugh, didn't we, Boris? And then we took some of those out. He also wanted to use the word dinosaur in his title. We talked him out of that, but we still talk about that around the office. So back to that podcast, where the seed for my book sprouted. An idea came to us, and it was called Prepare Your Best-Selling Manuscript. And PREPARE was an acronym that stood for 7 tips for all authors. And we loved this idea. I made a table of contents, I printed it out, I worked on it, we talked about it. But I could never finish it. It never felt like it was done. And those doubts came back about being able to write a book and say something meaningful. And so it didn't happen. So what actually pushed me to write my book? Well, this event, Booked Naples. And of course, we all know who was behind the push. April, in her infinite wisdom, suggested that I be a speaker, which I thought was great because I kind of like to talk. But there was a problem. This event is for authors, and I didn't have a book. Smart woman, that April. But she did give me a gift that day. And the cool thing was, this came to her in meditation, and a few of the speakers have talked about that. She said, Heather, I have a new title for you. You are magical. What if we call your book Manuscript Magic? And I was sold. Because Manuscript Magic captures who I am and what I do. And that was enough to get us going. It wasn't easy, but with our amazing team and my incredible developmental editor, who probably should have her name on the book too, because she wrote as much as I did, I was able to finish that book. And this week, on 2/2/22, Manuscript Magic, 7 Simple Steps to Writing a Book, was born into the world. Now, I am proud to say I am an author. And what's even better is I'm an author of a book that I'm proud of, and I am an author of a book that I hope will help other people overcome their doubts so they too can write their book. So some of you might say, who, me, an author? I know I said that, as did each of the authors you heard speak today. But we overcame our doubts. We stepped outside of our comfort zone, sometimes over and over and over again. And we wrote our books, we published our books, we persevered. And each of them will tell you that it was worth it. So when you say, who, me, an author? I say yes. The world needs your message. The world is ready for your book.
So we've come to almost the end of our afternoon together, and I want to recognize Diane Scribner. She was one of our first authors, and her book, Pray Attention, 5 Sacred Meditations with Audio, came out on Good Friday of 2020, right as COVID was coming to blossom. And we did a Facebook launch for her book. It became #1 new release in her category. We did a Facebook Live out of my driveway because we couldn't get together in person at that point in time. And we had so much celebratory excitement inside of her Facebook group, which she has maintained to this day. Her group has grown to over 1,000 people. She goes live on Facebook and encourages them. She is an ordained Unity minister. And so I've asked her, because she was our speaker coach for this event, so if you thought that the speakers look very polished, that's because she is a very good speaker coach. And we're so appreciative for her talents, for showing up for our rehearsals, for being able to say things like, stop rocking back and forth, or, stop scooting around the stage, or hold the mic closer. So Diane, with her wisdom, I've asked her to come and close us and offer us a heartfelt reflection on the day. So welcome, Diane.
Well, the first half of the evening, I was so glad that I was sitting stage left because I was crying during every one of the talks. Isn't it amazing when we hear each other's stories? Yeah. My book is entitled Pray Attention. And it's 5 sacred meditations with audio because this actually wasn't a book that I scribed. Books can come through all different sources, and you have everything you need. If you decide to share your story through the written word, that's wonderful. If you decide to share it by speaking, that's wonderful. If you decide to give of yourself in some extraordinary way, or perhaps start a consciousness about something that's taking place, that's wonderful. And the truth is, I know that through Pray Attention is the name of my ministry. What's real about us right now is that we're coming out. Each and every one of us is willing to say what has happened in our lives that have made of our lives extraordinary, unique experiences. That we are, in fact, each a cell in the one body that Elliott referred to. And that God moves at the speed of you in ways that nobody else can or ever has. So what I know when I pray attention with you, and I know after this event you will also be doing this much more mindfully, is that if I knew your story, I couldn't help but love you. If you knew my story, you couldn't help but love me. If we knew each other's stories, and this is not just local, this is global, we couldn't help but love each other. And so with that knowing now, I want to encourage you, because this has elicited some thought in you. It's always been there. You have all the resources you need, and now you have a concierge publisher and editor and a whole team that could help you if this is how you're going to bring forth your gift. I'm going to encourage you, if you're willing to do so, to just, I thought I'd just share a word from my book, and then move into a time of just a quiet time. You could call it meditation, you can call it reflection. We won't actually go into transcendental meditation at this point in time, but let's just have a quiet space together. Would you be willing to do that with me? Okay. So let's just uncross everything. Uncross your legs if you can. Uncross your fingers, uncross your hands. Uncross your thoughts. Anything that has ever held you back or caused you to think, no, I can't do that. I can help other people do that, but I can't do that. Uncross that belief. And just allow my voice, if you will, to just sound like the voice of the divine in you. Allow in this time a simple resting in my love and a drinking in of my peace as you allow my words to be the voice of spirit within you. Just relax and come close that I may enfold you. Precious one, the Holy Spirit has always been moving in you, giving you life, giving you breath right now, moving in you in radiant, inexplicable, unknowable, knowable ways. And you came here at just the right time, and you have everything you could possibly ever need to move forward, to make a difference, to sing your song, to speak with your voice. For it is the very song that someone, they need to hear that voice. Someone will relate to you that you don't even know. And you will in that way be touched in a way that God touches others. And so if you will, just for a moment, be still and think, is there a story that is mine to tell? What would it be about? What is your story? What could help? What is needing, wanting to be revealed through you? And it may be a word of gratitude, a thank you, as Elliott implied. It may be a moving forth and away from something that you've been taking part in that is no longer yours to take part in. It may be a standing firm in a place where you have been wafting, or perhaps a stretching forth where you've been holding back. What is that for you? And whether or not it comes to you in this moment of quietude, or it comes to you tonight in your sleep time, or tomorrow perhaps when you're doing dishes, or next week, or next year, or in 5 or 10, or whenever. This night, this day, this time together is something you've been given as a gift, a divine appointment. You're here so that you will remember yourself, stand in your own truth, be the magnificence, the very light of God that you're here to be. And so I just encourage you that when you open your physical eyes in a moment, that you allow yourself to see not only those slow-moving things that we perceive, you perceive, have seen with your human eyes, but that you allow the vision of spirit to move in and through you, bringing forth that which can help, bringing forth that which can aid others, touch others, love others, inspire others, encourage others, as every author has spoken of this day. You have everything you need. It's all here. And for this, we can be so grateful. And just let gratitude come up into your heart, just a sense of lightness of being. Just let that breathe and roll back your shoulders, if you will. Just roll back your shoulders. And as you open your physical eyes now, just look about you for a moment. Just witness. Just go ahead. I can see everybody from up here. Just look about you and notice. Whoever it is that's sitting near you or across this room, that's a child of God. And from this day forward, may you pay attention with every thought that you think, every word that you speak, and every action that you take. For you are here as a divine expression of that one amazing source energy. Thank you so much for being here. And by way of expressing that gratitude, I want to just notice with you that you got yourself here. You made a decision to come here, and I would like you to put your hands together to applaud yourself and everyone who's in this space. Let's just have a rousing applause for each other. Thank you, God.
So as we conclude, we'd like to take a moment to recognize the vision, the passion, the creativity of the one woman who has not only created this event, but a company and a family that's changing the world. The incredible, fearless, passionate, amazing April O'Leary.
Wow, thank you. That was very unexpected. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. I want to formally recognize my family. My husband, Jim O'Leary's right here. I said I will hopefully be over my virus called eventitis for a little while anyways. He's put up with a lot. And Molly and my fourth daughter, Jenna, were working the bar out there. The bar will be open after this if you want to stay and hang around for a little while. My mom came today. Sadie, my oldest daughter, drove down from Orlando to be here. My niece, Eleanor, thank you for coming, Elle. And my youngest daughter, Amy, and my sister, Emily. And Marianne, my cousin, I think is somewhere around here. Maybe she had to leave, but I'm so blessed that I have so much support behind me, so I know that I'm getting recognition here, but it's not just me. We also have, and if Dustin could put up the slide of our team, if you could stand if you're on the O'Leary Publishing team, we've got Heather Desrocher, who you've met, Kat Langenheim is a proofreader, Boris Boland flew down from Michigan to be here. He is amazing. Julianne Thomason came down from Illinois, and she's my publishing manager, and we have the rest of our team here. So we're very blessed to have so much talent. And if you're an O'Leary Publishing author, would you please stand? We've got some others, and forthcoming authors as well. We've got some forthcoming authors whose books aren't out yet, who may be speaking here next year. We want to thank them. And I want to do a little push for our bookstore because we have that open, so you can get all of our authors' books together with the Sober Mom, Happy Mom book included for $100. We've got the buy one and get one on the American Cop book and the Sober Mom's book, and of course, Manuscript Magic you can get complimentary with any purchase. So stay around, meet our authors, take pictures with them, and we thank you so much. And mark your calendar for February 4th of 2023 for our next booked event. And if you know how to scan a QR code, if you would scan that, that will take you to our Google listing, and we would love a review. So that's my final plug. Thank you so much for being a part of this event, and have an amazing day.